Because what I've been doing for years and just sound design for movies, everything else is recording real stuff in the world and taking it back and manipulating it on, usually on this thing. The very first time I did sound, there's something magical about it that I hadn't thought of before I went. I want to go into film school. Everyone in film school wants to make a movie, be a director. But even doing the first bit of sound work I did in school, there was something magical about it. A film comes to life in a interesting way, and you add sound, just the right sound. It becomes three-dimensional, and you take a flat movie that's kind of distant and not really working, and you add some simple sounds maybe, or you add music, you just do the sound work and it comes alive.
You said that you decided really early on that you wanted to get into film. Like you said, you were 12 years old, and like looking back, that sounds great now, you know, like I decided I wanted to do this and I did this and I was successful. That's great. But like, you know, how, was it? Did it really happen that way? Like, did you really not feel pressured by, you know, parents, society, like just noise around you? Was it really that easy for you to just be like, I'm doing film?
You know, I was lucky enough to have support, at least to my face. My parents and other people didn't laugh when I said I wanted to work in film. Everyone told me, you're not going to get a job. So I really did go it because I loved film. I wanted to study film, and I had no idea if I would get a job. And then I was too afraid to go out into the world after I graduated, so I just went back to graduate school in the same program. Got a bachelor's in film, got a master's in film, just kept going. And eventually a teacher of mine at USC who goes back to when George Lucas was going to USC got me a job up at Lucasfilm. Just one of those out of the blue things where he just came, I was sitting in school, and he said, "You want to interview for a job up at Lucasfilm?" I said, and so the next day I did, and 2 days later I was moved from LA up to San Francisco, which that's the kind of stuff that happens all the time, I think. It was out of the blue, you had no idea, there's no planning. I didn't say, I'll go to school and then try to get a job up at Lucasfilm, so it didn't work out that way, but so I got that opportunity and moved up here.
You mentioned confidence a lot, and I feel that I'm someone who kind of doesn't take advantage of all the opportunities I can or take risks because I'm not so confident in what the outcome will be. I'm in this neuroscience safe house, you know, I have my little job, whatever, and I may want to try something else, like maybe music or maybe recording, but I know that I'm not the best at it. I mean, how do you build the confidence, or do you just take the risk without building it first?
That's a good question. I think what you're saying is that just for everybody, if you're going to go into something, as you start doing it, you're not as good as you are later anyway. So, and you don't know how good you are at some things until you try them. So that's why you do have to be led by your passion. If it's something that really intrigues you, if you're intrigued by it, that means you'll probably put the energy into being good at it down the road. But to be naturally good at it, things now is impossible. It's a tough one. I think that's why you have to be led more by your passions than analyzing, what do I, you know, almost like doing that test on yourself. I seem to be 80% good at math and 70% good. It's hard to analyze it.
Kind of a silly question and kind of going along with that. I mean, how do you recognize a passion? I mean, that's just something that we've talked to so many people who have said the same thing. You got to be passionate about it. You got to be passionate about it. And I like to think I'm passionate about things, but I don't know. So how do you think, you knowing that you found something that you're passionate about, how do you recognize it?
I think it all comes down to curiosity. If it's just everything to me, you know, career is always not about the answers that you find, but about the questions that come up. And so if it's something that just you have endless questions about, you know, whether it's a career or science or whatever it is, and it's just the questions just keep popping into your head because you're interested, you're curious. If you're curious, then you're probably passionate. It's just like falling in love, I guess.